Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Kennedy and Looney. We're going to jump right in. You know what this is all about. We watched some very interesting pizzas this morning. We're going to get into that. This is going to be a fun episode. Like, share, subscribe. Tell somebody that you care about to watch Canadian federal politics. Get yours right here. Let's jump in.
Questions orales, oral questions.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
WTF.
Hey everyone, quiet down. There's a bulletin on TV.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
The one we call Canadians.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up. Elbows up.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We have issues in Canada, right? Unless you're completely head in the sand, be aware of this.
Oh, yeah. And now, oral questions.
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
1,600. 1,600, Mr. Speaker. That is the number of crimes that happen in this country every single day. That's almost one crime per minute. And these aren't statistics. These are innocent people hit over the head with baseball bats. Their jewelry store smashed in by an incoming automobile that then is used to open up and steal the proceeds that families have spent their entire lives earning. It's the people who wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of stomping feet in their living room floor as home invaders break in to steal, rob, pillage, and much worse. It's the Faruqi family, whose courageous father came running out to protect his defenseless children against home invaders and was shot in the throat. It is a 3-year-old girl, mercilessly raped by a chronic repeat offender, a scumbag who had already been convicted of raping a 12-year-old boy, but yet, under Liberal laws, was out on the street. C'est le cas qu'on entend à Saint.
Or in Saint Jerome, a woman was killed by her former partner, a partner who had already been arrested 30 times and who had gotten bail 16 times before killing his partner.
Beautiful young mother, Bailey McCourt, murdered by her ex, who was out on bail, and he had only been released 3 hours earlier. He was only 4 kilometers away from the courthouse that granted him that Liberal bail. Now, these are not just sensationalist stories as Liberals like to dismiss them. These are facts. While the Justice Minister condescendingly dismissed these crimes as we are not the Wild West, well, the facts would beg to differ, Mr. Speaker. Under this Liberal government, since they have taken office, violent crime is up 55%. Extortions up 330%. Homicides up 29%. Sexual assaults up 76%. There is a cause and there is effect. We know the source of this crime. It is Liberal bail. Liberal bail, as passed into law by Liberal Law C-75. It requires judges to release the accused at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous restrictions. Those are the words embedded in the law. And as a result, the same offenders can commit literally hundreds of offenses and be released often within hours of their latest arrest. Police say that often they're not even finished the paperwork on the arrest and the offender is back out on the street. I've had police officers tell me they've arrested the same offender 3 times in the same day. One police officer in the Toronto area told me that most of the arrests this time, the criminals happily confessed to the crime in the back seat of the car because they actually don't care about getting convicted anymore. They know that Liberal laws will turn them loose regardless of the outcome of the trial. Now, Liberals pulled a bait and switch in order to get elected. In the last election, they knew that Canadians were fed up with Liberal bail. So they said, give us a 4th chance and we'll reverse course. What happened? Well, it's now been 6 months since the Prime Minister was elected on the promise that he would reverse Liberal bail. And where are we? There's not been a single Liberal bill to reverse the bail system that they set up. Not one. We're 6 months in, Mr. Speaker. We all know what needs to happen. The police have basically written the legislative repeal that is necessary for us to fix the Liberal mess. And yet, no bill, nothing, zero, zip, zilch. Maybe it's because the Prime Minister took the unprecedentedly reckless act of appointing Justin Trudeau's most incompetent minister to the job. The now Justice Minister was the immigration minister who literally destroyed the best system in the world, increasing the numbers by 300% over the previous norm, allowing criminals to come into our country unvetted, swamping our housing, job and health care with too many people too fast. And then he went on to the housing portfolio, where he created the worst housing crisis in the OECD, and now he's in charge of the criminal code. Not compound that problem with the Minister of Public Safety, someone who should resign for having gone ahead with a bill with a plan to confiscate property from law-abiding firearms owners that he was caught on tape saying would not work. This is who we have as the Keystone Cops in charge of reversing the Liberal crime wave of the last decade. Now, some people say we need bail reform. We have bail reform. It's called C-75. What we need is to undo the Liberal bail reform. Hence, today, we are calling for the government to scrap Liberal bail and replace it with jail, not bail. And so today we put forward a motion that would allow Parliament to adopt Bill C-242, the Jail Not Bail Act, put forward by the brilliant Member of Parliament for Oxford, Ontario. This proposal is backed by police, by crime victims, and by everybody who wants to stop crime. And you will hear more from the member for Niagara South, with whom I'm splitting my time on this matter, Mr. Speaker. And I will note that this government doesn't need to do anything. They don't need to do a thing. They just need to get out of the way. If they get out of the way, they've already broken the bail system. They brought in the chaos that we are now experiencing. We're not asking them to put on a cape and come to the rescue. We're asking them to simply get out of the way. If they do one thing, it is this: sit on their hands and let the House of Commons pass this motion to quickly push through the Jail Not Bail Act. We can lock up the criminals that have been terrorizing our streets. That's all we need them to do. In fact, some people say they're doing nothing. It would be great if they did nothing, actually, because nothing would be a massive improvement over what they have been doing, which is they have been doing violence to our criminal code, and our criminal code has allowed criminals to do violence to our people. We need the answer is actually very simple. Liberals, pseudo-intellectuals in liberal circles love to say the problem is much more complicated. It's not a complicated problem, Mr. Speaker. The statistics tell us the extent. We have a very small number of criminals doing a phenomenal amount of crime. The same 40 offenders in Vancouver got arrested 6,000 times. That's 150 arrests per offender per year, and those were just the occasions on which they were caught. Almost all the crime is done by a tiny group of rampant reoffenders. If you keep them in jail, they cannot reoffend. It is very simple. We did this under the previous Conservative government. And one thing happened that was unsurprising and one that was maybe counterintuitive. The first thing is, unsurprising, crime went down by 25%, plummeted. Biggest drop in crime in modern Canadian history. It worked. The second part was a little bit counterintuitive. You know what else went down? Incarcerations. After Liberals warned that we'd have to build new jails to accommodate all of the prisoners, in fact, fewer people ended up in jail. Why? Because the same offenders who were coming in and going out just stayed behind bars. We already had to reserve them a room, Mr. Speaker. It's like the Hotel California. They check out, but they never really leave. You just keep them in the cell and never let them out, lock them up, throw away the key. But then something else happened. The small-time offenders or those looking at getting involved in a life of crime said, hell no. The penalty is too serious. I'm going to go get a job and follow the law. Deterrence works. The facts are in. Liberal bail has brought hell to our streets. And the only one keeping that hell in place is this Prime Minister. He and his government need to get out of the way so Conservatives can scrap Liberal bail, lock up the criminals and throw away the key. And do this not out of vengeance or spite, but out of love for the law-abiding people, so that our children can once again play safely in our streets, so that people can go to bed at night in peace and tranquility, so that when they wake up in the morning, their car is still there, so that we have a safe country where law-abiding people can live good, secure, happy, worry-free lives. That's what we're working for. Will the government get out of the way and let us get it done?
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It sounds like the Leader of the Opposition is against a comprehensive plan coming forward. It takes time to put a plan together, and we've done exactly that. We've done exactly that in the new reform legislation that will deal with not only bail, but also sentencing. I know the Leader he likes to mock and call people incompetent when they don't exactly agree with him. But, Mr. Speaker, does he agree that we need comprehensive reform and we should also be dealing with sentencing? We should also be working with provinces to make sure that their courts are implementing bail appropriately, judges are trained. Would he not admit that comprehensive reform is what we really need?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, they brought in comprehensive reform over the last 10 years. Let's talk about their reforms. Their reforms require judges to release offenders at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. That was the reform. That's why we have chaos in our streets. They brought in another reform, house arrest for sex offenders, extortionists, gun criminals, and other serious offenders. That's why so many recent convicts are able to reoffend with ease. They brought in another reform, which is to waste billions of dollars chasing down law-abiding people while turning gun criminals and gangsters on our streets for free. We know what their Liberal reform is. It is to unleash crime and chaos in our communities. We need to reverse Liberal criminal justice reforms, scrap Liberal bail, lock up the criminals, throw away the key, and restore safety for Canadians.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in January 2023, working as a police officer, I attended the funeral of Constable Greg Prishala of the OPP, who was killed by someone who had already been denied bail, but was released anyway. The OPP commissioner at the time said this death would not have happened if the suspect had been kept in custody. To the Leader of the Opposition, What is the price Canadians are paying at this point of these failed Liberal policies?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
I want to thank the member for Windsor West, not only for his service here in this House, but for his courageous service as a police officer protecting Windsorites and all Canadians. He put his life on the line every single day, like so many police officers, leaving in the morning, kissing their kids goodbye, knowing it might be the last time they see them. And for Greg Pierre, it was the last time he saw his family after he was gunned down by someone that the Liberals had released on bail. Liberal bail took his life. What is the price that people are paying? They're paying with their blood and with their lives. And every day another tragedy unfolds on our streets. Every day after all these years, the Liberals have known that their laws are causing this chaos. Not only were they warned beforehand by police, but they have seen it through the bloodshed on our streets. How many more people will have to die before this government will get out of the way, scrap Liberal bail, and protect our people?
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. No extreme words coming from the Leader of the Official Opposition there. Take a look in terms of what it is he's actually saying, and you wonder why it is that he's fallen so far to the right. Interesting enough, in this legislation, Mr. Speaker, that they're proposing, they've abandoned the policy of the American-style three-strike and you're out. I wonder why. Can the Leader of the Conservative Party indicate to his caucus colleagues, to Canadians, and make a policy statement? Has he abandoned his three strikes and you're out? If not, why didn't he include it in the legislation he's proposing? Good question.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
No, Mr. Speaker. We support three strikes, you're out. Criminals who commit three violence offences should go to jail. We should lock them up and throw away the key. But that member just revealed how radical and extreme he and his party has become. Here he says that it is extreme to lock up criminals who have committed 7 or 8 offenses. You know what is extreme, Mr. Speaker? I'll tell you what's extreme. When someone gets released for the 16th time after 30 arrests and then goes and kills his ex-spouse. These are the stories that are happening on our streets every single day. The extreme bloodshed and violence that Liberals have unleashed, that is what is radical. That is what we need to put an end to. Will they get out of the way so we can scrap Liberal bail?
Resuming. The Honourable Member for Brantford Brant, Six Nations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Always.
We had Larry Brock up earlier, and he does 15 minutes here. Very interesting. Larry Brock is engaging.
It's always a pleasure to rise on behalf of the great citizens of Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations. It's more particularly poignant for me, given today's topic and given my prior history in the criminal justice system. And I would dare say, Mr. Speaker, that one of the driving forces for me to leave behind, at that point, almost 28 years in the criminal justice system, to become a legislator is because I saw firsthand, daily, the firsthand tragic consequences of the failed soft-on-crime agenda by this Liberal government. Starting in 2015, making the changes in 2019 with Bill C-75, later in 2023 with C-5 and C-83, the cumulative effect is now Canadians are living in a state of fear. Canadians are waking up every single day to reading, seeing, and hearing about one heartbreak story after another, usually someone who has been killed, someone who has been wounded, maimed, injured, had their car stolen, had their home invaded, been subject to sexual assaults, and lo and surprise, we have individuals who are committing these offenses, who are on numerous releases, who are classified by the police services as being well known to them because they are repeat violent offenders. That is the reality that Canada is facing. This was not the reality prior to 2019, Mr. Speaker. In 2019, there was a balance in our criminal justice system where the rights, the constitutional rights of the accused, the right to be presumed innocent, the right to reasonable bail, was balanced evenly with community safety and the safety of victims. We saw more releases and we saw more detention orders, and people had a level of confidence that things were working as they were supposed to. But this government decided in 2019 to lie to Canadians. Justin Trudeau and his former ministers deliberately lying to Canadians by saying,
Order. There are certain words that we do consider unparliamentary, so I would just encourage the member to leave out those words and carry on with his comment.
Misleading Canadians into believing they were simply codifying language from the Supreme Court of Canada. The decision they were referring to, Mr. Speaker, was Antic. And Antic basically reiterated the principles under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that apply to people who are factually innocent, although charged with a serious crime. Justin Trudeau and his ministers said they were taking the language from Antic and applying that to the criminal code. Well, the decision in Antic never directed the federal government to do anything. It was a reminder about the balance that needed to take place every single day in every single courthouse in this country. Justin Trudeau and his then Justice Minister, David Lametti, decided to make it one step easier for criminals. They introduced the principle of restraint under Section 493.1 of the Criminal Code, which then said, regardless of the grounds of detention in the Criminal Code, the primary ground, are you going to show up for court? The secondary ground, is there a protection issue for the public? Is there a presumption that this person is going to be incurring further charges if released? And the tertiary grounds, to maintain the confidence of the public, depending on the severity of the charge. Those three grounds worked, but Justin Trudeau and David Lametti decided to introduce the principle of restraint. That telegraphed to every judge and every justice of the peace hearing bail applications to this day that they shall, mandatory language, shall release the accused at the earliest opportunity on the least restrictive conditions. Regardless of what the charge was, regardless of the carnage the charge has caused to the community or to the victim, regardless of the offender's criminal record, which may have showed a pattern of breaching court orders or a pattern of committing that same offense again. And then, get this, Mr. Speaker, regardless of the number of outstanding releases that person may be on, that person, according to this Liberal government, was worthy of release. That, Mr. Speaker, is the origin of catch and release. That is the reason we have the problems that exist today. Now, I know the member for Winnipeg North likes to turn everything into a partisan issue. But to my colleague from Woodstock, this particular bill and our arguments are not partisan, because community safety is not a partisan issue. Every member in this House represents constituents. And those constituents want to wake up in their home that is still safe. The windows are still intact. The doors haven't been broken in. That their vehicle is still in the driveway. That their kids can play safely in the backyard, can play street hockey on the streets, and not be hit by stray bullets or not be invaded at night, as we are seeing constantly, day after day after day. That's what Canadians want. And that's why this is not a partisan issue. The number one responsibility of that Liberal government, Mr. Speaker, is to keep Canadians safe. So despite what the member for Winnipeg North saying, that the Prime Minister has a robust agenda that he's promised Canadians, This is a classic bait and switch. We heard these promises during the election. We heard the promises in the throne speech. We have heard numerous members on that side of the House make promises that it's coming. But here we are, 7 months removed from when this Prime Minister became the new Prime Minister of this country, and we are still waiting. And in that time frame, people are dying, people are fearful, people are being sexually assaulted, people are being extorted at an alarming rate. Just take a look at these statistics, Mr. Speaker. Because of liberal bail laws, violent crime up 55% since 2015. Firearm crime up 130% because of liberal bail laws. Because of liberal bail laws, extortion skyrocketed 330%. Because of liberal bail laws, sex assaults up 76%. Because of liberal bail laws, homicides up 29%. So that's why if they don't want to exercise their number one responsibility, get out of the way. Let us bring forth common sense solutions to protect Canadians. I brought a petition that I was hoping was going to go viral across this country this past July, calling for the immediate repeal of the principle of restraint, restoring safe streets, and applying the principle of community safety, just like the member of Woodstock has done in our Jail Not Bail Act. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? Since the middle of July, 60,000 proud Canadians that those members in the government represent, signed my petition. Because for the last 4 years, this government has heard from premiers, has heard from mayors, has heard from presidents of police associations, has heard from police chiefs, has heard from victim advocacy groups to do one thing: change your approach to bail. Keep Canadians safe. So here's your opportunity to the Liberal government. If you want to clearly distinguish yourself and remove yourself from the Trudeau legacy, here is your opportunity. Stand in support of the Jail Not Bail Act or abstain from the vote. But please telegraph to your constituents, who I'm sure are going to be watching our speeches today, and if they're not, I will certainly share it amongst all my followers across this country, to do your job. Stand up for Canada, stand up for safety, stand up for victims, and put violent criminals where they belong, back in jail. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before we go to questions and comments, just a reminder that we address comments through the chair and not directly to members on either side. Questions and comments, the Honourable Secretary of State, Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I don't disagree with a lot of what the member says, minus a lot of exaggeration and some oversimplification at times. We are bringing forward legislation that is going to reform the bail process. We have also brought forward other smaller bills wherein a lot of the work was already complete. Our Stronger Borders Act, C2, was the second legislation that we brought into the House, and C9, hate crime, is what we have before us. In a few weeks, we'll have the bail reform as well. So we're hard at work on this. I'd like to know from the member whether he's going to support C2, because what I've heard from a lot of the Conservatives is that they're in opposition to what law enforcement has asked for.
We're from Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Perhaps my friend didn't hear me as clearly as I wanted her to hear me. Law enforcement has been pleading with this government for the last 4 years. They've had regular meetings here in Ottawa and in many parts across this country. They came here to Ottawa for a one-day summit producing Bill C-48, which added reverse onus provisions to a number of firearm offences, which did not move the needle one iota on community safety. So they're asking her to do her job. We can't wait. The Justice Minister has been promising reform now for the last 6 months. Get on board with the Jail Not Bail Act and protect Canadians.
Question commentaire on député de Drummond.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, Voltaire said that it's better to save someone who's guilty than to condemn someone who's innocent. This is a principle in all democracies and evolved societies in the world. Mr. Speaker, we should not keep the accused in prison or behind bars rather than freeing them on presumption of innocence. That is against all of the democratic principles we defend. Now, there are countries who do that, China, North Korea, Iran, to name a few. But in Canada, that's not in our values. Mr. Speaker, does my colleague still believe in democracy and the fundamental values we uphold in Quebec and in Canada?
I absolutely believe in democracy. I absolutely believe in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And in that charter, you have 2 fundamental rights that apply to bail matters. This is bail. This is not sentencing. The right to be presumed innocent until proven otherwise, and the right to reasonable bail. But reasonable bail does not mean absolute bail. And that is the consequence, literally, of Bill C-75. The purpose behind a bail hearing is not to determine guilt or innocence, but in its assessment of risk. And when you're dealing with violent repeat offenders, the easy solution is community outweighs the freedom of the accused.
Questions and comments. I don't remember for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From Vancouver Sun, February 25th, 2025. Just weeks after former Abbotsford gangster Jared Bacon was arrested in a shooting in Fort Nelson, BC, charges against him were dropped. Witnesses simply just don't feel safe. Ben Wall from Fort Nelson had 9 pieces of equipment destroyed. His shop was burned to the ground. Organized crime has set up shop in Fort Nelson, and again, people in Fort Nelson don't feel safe. Will this bill, the member made a great speech, will this bill make people feel safe in Fort Nelson once again? Thank you.
Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
To my friend's question, thank you very much for that question. It was fantastic. Absolutely. This bill will see immediate changes to the safety quotient across this country. There will be a rebalancing of our criminal justice system where the rights of the accused are balanced with community safety and victim safety, and those repeat violent offenders will find it exceedingly difficult, not impossible, but more exceedingly difficult to obtain bail.
Questions and comments, the Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni. A brief question.
Mr. Speaker, we all want to end the cycle of crime, and I'll give an example to my colleague. In my riding, there was an application for a rapid housing initiative, and the housing
members, 6 minutes each. Ms. Kuzi, you have the floor to kick us off, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses for being here today. Merci beaucoup pour être ici aujourd'hui.
Thank you for being here today.
General's report made it clear that your department is not on track to deliver the 50% reduction in federal office space over the 10-year period. I find it hard to believe that PSPC will even reach the new 33% planned reduction, given since 2019 the government has only reduced federal office space by 1.6%. What gives you the belief that you can reach this target?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I have a number of points that I'd like to raise in terms of the progress today. We acknowledge that we have not hit a large number of progress, in part because between 2019 and 2024, we didn't have a approved policy to hit the 50% reduction supported by an approved funding source. That came in the 2024 budget, but also in between the pre-work that was done in 2019 and 2024, we had a severe disruption to the portfolio and to our work program because of the pandemic. And the last piece I would just kind of mention is part of what we were doing in that interim was running procurements and initiating large capital projects that will actually result and enable reductions in outer years. So I can appreciate at the moment that the progress has been relatively modest, But as we look around the city and we look across the river at Place de Portage 3 or La Terrasse de la Chaudière, we have hundreds of thousands of square meters of office space that is being modernized today, which will enable reductions 2-3 years down the road. So we have made some progress over the last year. We will see as we go further along and complete our capital projects, which can take 3 to 5 years each, we will start to see an acceleration in the amount of reductions.
Thank you for that response. The Canadian Press reported last week that the updated in-office rules for public servants is thwarting, and that's their word, not mine, thwarting plans to sell off office space. Do you agree with this statement?
The current footprint that we have can...
In comparison, just 25 years ago, less than 7% of those who voted before Election Day. This ongoing trend shows a deep and lasting evolution in Canadians' voting behavior and service expectations. It also puts enormous pressure on our infrastructure and in particular on our returning officers. Any election is a major logistical undertaking and requires the coordinated efforts of an extraordinary number of people over an immense territory. It is done without any permanent infrastructure during a very short period and based on a calendar that is unknown ahead of time. In a snap election context with only 36 days, the ability of returning officers to secure polling sites, to recruit a sufficient number of poll workers, not just overall, but in each and every community, and to offer a range of special voting services may have reached its limit. In some cases, these pressures may have also contributed to some of the issues we experienced with special ballot voting in a few electoral districts that I mentioned in my report. We are currently reviewing special ballot training, control mechanisms, and processes to minimize the risk of errors, and we will implement changes in the coming months as we prepare for the next election. But it is important to also examine how we can adapt to the evolving needs and service expectations of Canadians, not just for the next election, but for future ones as well. As I indicated in my 2022 recommendations report, outside of a fixed date election context, a short 36-day campaign may not be sufficient to meet those evolving service needs. Increasing early voting services, whether by adding advanced polling days as was contemplated in the last Parliament, or simply increasing service points within the same 4 advanced polling days as we did in this election, requires more lead time. We've also been testing electronic lists of electors in by-elections and will continue to do so in order to modernize our processes and make them more efficient and flexible. But the introduction of technology at the polls to serve electors, even as we maintain our paper ballot, needs to be gradual and prudent. To conclude, Mr. Chair, Canada has a strong electoral process built on gradual change and adaptation. My report, as was the case with previous reports, is an opportunity to reflect on what adjustments are necessary to meet the evolving expectations of Canadians. Et ça va me faire plaisir de répondre aux questions des membres du comité.
I will be happy to answer the committee's questions.
Cooper for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Perot. Thank you, Mr. Roussel. Good to see both of you back in committee. I'm going to ask Mr. Perot you some questions about the so-called longest ballot committee, which you reference in your report. In the last election, this group targeted the Carleton riding, although prior to the last election, they targeted several by-elections and then later targeted the Battle River Crowfoot riding in the recent by-election, with a total of 91 candidates in Carleton, a record 203 candidates in Battle River Crowfoot. Would you agree, broadly speaking, that the committee's tactic to flood the ballot with an endless list of candidates had a overall disruptive and negative impact on the electoral process in Carleton, in the prior by-elections, and in Battle River Crowfoot?
Certainly it did have such an impact, and it was a challenge for a number of voters, especially those with disabilities, to be able to cast their ballot with such a long list of electors. And that is why, Mr. Chair, I've come to this committee in the past and recommended some changes to make sure that this can be addressed.
And just to sort of flesh out some of the challenges that this committee created, you referred to voters with disabilities. That would include voters with visual impairments, mobility issues, literacy challenges. Would that be correct?
Include as well voters with dexterity to handle such a large ballot. People who are physically impaired, who have limitations, would also face a challenge.
Negatively impacted on voter autonomy.
That is that's what we find, yes.
And further to that, in the Carleton riding, it resulted in longer lineups at the polls?
It certainly resulted in longer lineups. Of course, much longer processes to count the ballots, as we're aware. We had to advance the count for 3 hours for the advanced polls count during that day, and the count extended throughout the night.
And in Battle River Crowfoot riding, it necessitated the adoption of an adapted ballot. And I presume that also created its challenges. Is that fair for certain voters?
Certainly, voters, for example, who would use the Braille list to cast a ballot would have a different experience. So yes, it does create challenges. Electors with low literacy or people who have difficulty writing, manipulating a pen or pencil, may find that to be challenging. I think from my perspective, one of the important points also is the fact that it requires me to set aside the rules that Parliament has passed for the format of the ballot. And that's something, that, of course, that I had to do to make sure the election could proceed. But as I said before this committee, it's not something that I do lightly. And that's why I hesitated before moving to a write-in ballot format, which is a greater variation from what is prescribed in the legislation.
Now, you mentioned that you had recommended some amendments to the Canada Elections Act. I know that in September 2024, following disruptions that occurred in by-elections, you wrote to the then Minister of Democratic Institutions, Dominic LeBlanc, to express your concerns about the impact of the longest ballot committee and proposed an amendment to the Canada Elections Act. Did you receive a response from the minister?
I'd just like to, Mr. Chair, to also mention that I shared, of course, that recommendation with the committee as well. It wasn't just to the minister. In terms of a commitment to make the changes, I did not receive a commitment to make that change.
Now, that recommendation was what? Just if you could elaborate on that.
So my recommendation was to ensure that the 100 signatures that are currently required, a bit less in some of the remote ridings, low-density ridings, that the 100 signatures be unique signatures. That a person, and I believe that is the philosophy of the legislation, though not the letter, that a person who endorses the nomination of a candidate endorses the nomination of that particular candidate and not just any candidate, whoever that candidate may be. And I believe that that is the approach of the longest ballot committee signators, that they endorse anybody and everybody who wishes to be part of the long ballot initiative. So I don't think that's aligned with the spirit of the legislation. I also caution, however, that the requirement, should it be implemented, the requirement to have unique signatures should be something which may carry a fine, for example. Could be a few $100s, could be $1,000, but should not be caused to invalidate a nomination. As a candidate, the candidate would not know that a signature, a good faith candidate, would not know that somebody has signed on to somebody else's nomination paper. And the last thing that we would want is to have returning officers having to verify the 100 signatures to chase down, the potential double signatures, which may be in good faith. It may be somebody who was confused and wanted to be supportive, didn't understand the rules. But we don't want, certainly, a candidate nomination to be questioned just because one of the 100 names happened to be in somebody else's nomination paper as well. So my recommendation was that there be a prohibition for double signatures, a prohibition on inducing or encouraging people to do that, accompanied by sanctions. Again, it could be a fine, but without such a rule invalidating the nomination of any candidate. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, unless the candidate induced himself or
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Jackson.
Thank you, Chair, and very nice to meet both of you. My pleasure and a privilege to be here as a new member of Parliament under the 45th general election. So thank you for making sure that went smoothly, and my local returning officer, Joni Swidnicki, is a wonderful person. She did a great job in Brandon-Souris. So wasn't originally going to start here, but I am just curious because you mentioned about the pencil issue. So would it be beneficial, I guess, to just go back to Elections Canada providing pens at voting booths in order to deal with this misinformation issue that was out there? Is that something that you would consider going forward, is going back to pens?
It's something that so to be clear, I don't believe we ever did use pens at polling stations. We've all used, as far as I know, always used pencils. The benefit of pencils, beyond the fact that they are economical, is that they don't dry up. And they don't smudge. So if you start using ball pens, for example, and you store them for 4 years and the leftovers stay on for some pencils have been in our boxes for several cycles. They're always working. If you buy pens, you have to verify that they work. And even if they do work, sometimes they may smudge, and that could cause ballots to be rejected. So our preference is for pencils, but we do not disallow the use of pens.
Thank you for that. Just trying to deal with this misinformation issue. There may be an additional cost, but on the information side and dealing with credibility questions about ballot, perhaps that is worth the cost. But when you talk about smudging, for example, I understand that is an issue on the physical ballot itself. But I would like to try, as parliamentarians, I think we all would, to try and combat some of those issues, again, in a nonpartisan fashion if we can. So if there's anything we can do, please let us know. In terms of the report, it was very comprehensive. I agree with my colleagues' comments on that. It states that more than 60% of voter information cards were either mailed late or not at all. And I understand with labor disruptions and just the general context of mail delivery these days, I'm skeptical that is likely to improve going forward. So in terms of the voter information cards themselves, if 60% can't be delivered on time, have they outlived their usefulness? Or what does Elections Canada recommend? Would you consider other types of delivery providers to ensure that 60% figure not getting delivered on time is very high, in my opinion? Have you considered other options to get those cards on time, or are they past their usefulness?
So thank you. That's a very rich question. I'll try to peel the different parts of the onion. Just to be clear, 60% were mailed late. That's after day 24, which the Act provides they should be in the mail at day 24. I believe it's something like 17%. It's a much lower figure that arrived late, and for me, late is after advance polls have begun. So, of course, we want that to happen before advance polls, but it's critical that they be received before polling day. So that's the first point. The second point, Mr. Chair, is that it's not primarily a mail delivery problem. In this election, a challenge that we faced was the inability not of finding but confirming polling locations. In many cases, what we see is that it takes a lot more time to negotiate leases, whether it's school principals, school boards, commercial landlords with lawyers and boards that they report to, having to validate and approve the leases in a way that was not the case before. So it's no longer a handshake or a phone call and a quick signature. It's a long process. And then the returning officer moves to Plan B, and Plan B is the same long process, and Plan C is the same long process. So the main challenge, is securing polling locations in a timely way, and that's why I said that the calendar in a fixed date is not a problem, but outside of a fixed date, that really creates an important pain point.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick question, because I know I'm running out of time in this round, about my constituency. I heard a lot, and again, I'm a new candidate, about a couple of locations, Hobbs Manor in Brandon, which is a seniors' residence, and La Riviere and Cypress River, two communities that have had polling stations in them for time immemorial. Nobody can remember an election where they didn't have a federal polling station. All of those places did not have one this time. So has the population threshold to have a polling location changed as part of this election? Or why would these long-standing communities that have always had a polling location not have had one? It, particularly in the two rural towns, it severely impacted because there is no public transit available in these communities to get to the next community over for residents to be able to vote, etc. So it was a significant barrier for all of those locations.
And I do appreciate that. We did not raise the threshold in any way for locations for assigning polls. We had more polls in this election than in previous elections. The ability to find one that is suitable in the right location.
All right, gang, we're going to cross over to question period right now, so hopefully we can call that up. And here we go. Here we go.
So many. Yet in today's world, often those who have faith are mocked as being naive or even ignorant. But the truth is that faith is the very foundation of our civilization, bracing humanity against the unrelenting storms of life by providing us hope of something greater and better than ourselves, acting as a North Star, leading us home, empowering great men like Lord Wilberforce and his unrelenting fight against slavery to call out injustice and speak truth in a dark and divided world. Canada is facing challenging times. Many struggle just to get through the day, but all is not lost. We press on to build a better nation, a better future. So as we move forward to build better days and have a better future, may we all take faith, have faith, and keep the faith.
The Honourable Member for Pickering, Brooklyn.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize an extraordinary achievement from my riding of Pickering, Brooklyn. Joel Toscano from the community of White Whale and his team have won the 2025 TIFF 48-Hour Film Challenge, a prestigious national competition where filmmakers are given only 2 days to write, film, and edit a short film. Out of many talented participants across the country, Joel's creativity and skills stood out, earning him this remarkable honor. His success is a testament not only to his dedication to the arts, but also to the vibrant creative spirit that thrives in our community. We are so proud of Joel and his team and look forward to seeing where this talent takes him next. I invite all members of the House to join me in congratulating Joel Toscano and his team on this outstanding accomplishment. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Regina Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, it is my deep honor today to welcome the Balfour family to Ottawa. James, Heather, and Taylor are visiting us today all the way from Regina, Saskatchewan. Today is the birthday of their late daughter, Rachel, who was killed when she was poisoned by fentanyl in 2019. Every year, the Balfour family tries to do something meaningful to remember and honor Rachel on her birthday. This year, they have chosen to share their story with us here in our nation's capital. Tragically, the Balfours are not alone in their loss. Last year, approximately 20 Canadian families per day lost a loved one to an opioid overdose. For Rachel Balfour, her family, and the thousands of Canadian families just like them, it is time to get fentanyl off of our streets, so no family has to mourn another senseless loss to the scourge of fentanyl.
Here, here. The Honourable Member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, Kitchener-Conestoga recently celebrated the Wellesley and New Hamburg Fall Fairs, two events that showcase the best of rural life and bring neighbours together. These fairs connect us to our agricultural roots and highlight values of hard work, community, and tradition. They also help bridge urban and rural communities, raising awareness about agriculture and inspiring future farmers. Thank you to the volunteers, organizers, sponsors, and agricultural societies whose dedication keep these traditions alive. And this past weekend, I flipped pancakes at the 50th Wellesley Apple Butter and Cheese Festival and was also honored to mentor young performers at the Wellesley Idol competition. This milestone 50th anniversary is a testament to the enduring spirit of community and volunteerism that's made the festival a beloved celebration for generations. Congratulations to everyone involved at the Wellesley Apple Butter and Cheese Festival.
The honourable member for Acadianapolis.
Speaker, it's with a heavy heart that I rise today to pay tribute to my dear friend, a proud Cape Bretoner and a true servant of the people, Alfie MacLeod. Alfie was more than a public colleague in public life. He was a man of deep conviction, boundless compassion, and unmistakable wit. A long-serving MLA and Speaker of the Nova Scotia House of Assembly, Alfie dedicated his life to the people of Cape Breton, always putting community first. He was first elected in '95, returned in '06, and served until 2019 as Speaker from 2007 to 2009. Alfie brought fairness, humor, and dignity to the role, but it was outside the chamber, at fire halls, church basements, and charity auctions, where Alfie's love for his community truly shone. Alfie faced his battle with cancer the same way he lived his life, with courage, resilience, and a twinkle in his eye. He was a family man, a friend to many, and a fierce advocate for Cape Breton. My wife and Anne offer our deepest condolences to his wife, Shirley, and their children, Daniel, Jessica, Sandra, and his grandchildren. Alfie's legacy will live on the lives he touched in the community that he so dearly loved. Rest well, my friend. You deserve it.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the first time in history, a woman from Quebec is the world cycling champion. Magdalene Vallière-Mille, a young woman from Sherbrooke with roots in the Gaspé Peninsula, has achieved the incredible. She just won the rainbow jersey at the Road World Championships in Kigali, Rwanda, becoming just the third non-European cyclist to win this award. She wowed the crowd with her racing strategy while she was on a breakaway. Her well-placed attacks and an amazing final sprint left all her competitors behind. Magdalene, all of Quebec is so proud of you. Your victory will undoubtedly inspire many young women, especially those participating in the new Women's Tour de l'Abitibi this year. I'm already looking forward to next year, especially when Magdalene Vallière-Mille will defend her crown at home in 2026 on the roads of Montreal and the famous Camillien Hood Hill, which will host the next UCI Road World Championships. Bravo, Magdalene.
The honourable member for London West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week in London, we announced a $3.5 million investment through FedDev Ontario, delivered to Tech Alliance to fuel local innovation and create opportunities across Southern Ontario. This funding will support innovators like Deep Reef, developing health solutions, Vessels, transforming prosthetic and cutting-edge design, and Polyanalytic, advancing material science, and many more companies. And these companies prove that London has the talent, the creativity, and the drive to lead. For our government, this is about more than just dollars. It's about delivery. We are backing people who take risks, who solve problems, and create real results for families. So from London to every corner of our region, this investment ensures that the next breakthroughs will just be imagined here. They'll be built here, they'll create jobs here, and strengthen Canada's economy. I am proud to serve in a government that is building a strong Canada through the strength of its people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to bring attention to the tragedy Christians in Nigeria are experiencing. The deadly terrorist organization Boko Haram is trying to eliminate the Christian faith from Nigeria. This is the same terrorist group that kidnapped dozens of young schoolgirls and burned innocent civilians alive in cages. According to reports, over 3.5 million people have been forced to flee their homes. 3 churches are destroyed every single day. 7,000 Christians were massacred this year alone, and the faithful must now meet in secret or in burnt-out sanctuaries. Sadly, the world is turning a blind eye to the plight of Christians in Nigeria. There are no embedded journalists covering the violence. There are not daily updates. Politicians around the world are not asked questions about how they will respond. We cannot ignore this violence and tragic loss of life. We must speak out and shine a light on what's happening so that people can donate to relief efforts and provide support to those displaced by violence. To my brothers and sisters in Christ, we know you know the power of prayer. We will not forget you. Stay strong. Keep the faith.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to pay tribute to the late Dr. Jane Goodall. Dr. Goodall was a world-renowned primatologist, conservationist, and United Nations Messenger of Peace. She founded the Jane Goodall Institute, which continues her global mission to protect wildlife and inspire hope. Her groundbreaking discoveries about chimpanzees transformed humanity's understanding of our closest relatives and reminded us of a truth long held by Indigenous peoples, that we are not separate from nature but deeply connected to it. Her life's work sparked a revolution of empathy for animals, for the environment, and for each other. In this time of climate crisis and biodiversity loss, her message has never been more urgent. Dr. Goodall gave hope to generations, especially young people, who carry forward a vision of a planet where all creatures are treated with compassion. May her legacy continue to guide us, and may we honor her memory through action to protect the natural world we all share. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What a loss. What a loss. The honourable member for Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, Edmonton Police have sadly announced that 14-year-old Samuel Bird from Paul First Nation is now presumed dead, months after he was declared missing. This child was murdered, and police believe that his killers have hidden his remains west of Edmonton. My thoughts and prayers are with his family at this time. Samuel's case is not an isolated one. In 2010, Lyle and Marie McCann were also murdered. Their killer has been brought to justice, but has refused to reveal the location of his victims' remains. I introduced Bill C-236 in honor of Lyle and Marie. It would empower judges and parole boards to hold killers and their accomplices to account when they are known to have withheld information on the location of their victims' remains. Families have a right to give their loved ones a proper funeral, and those who would deny them this fundamental right must be held to account. We owe it to Lyle, Marie, and Samuel and their families to pass Bill C-236.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, food self-sufficiency is becoming an important solution for our families and our communities. And that's exactly what Urbain Culteurs, a Quebec City organization, is doing to transform the way that we think about urban agriculture. With rooftop gardens and greening schools and neighborhoods, their innovative projects are giving people back the power to produce some of their own food while beautifying where we live. Their mission is clear and it's inspiring: to democratize agriculture, to encourage food self-sufficiency, and to build connections between people. By growing vegetables, they're also growing solidarity, resilience, and hope for a greener and more inclusive city. I'd like to warmly thank the entire Urbain Culteurs team for their exceptional work. They're showing us that together, it's possible to build a future where access to healthy food is possible everywhere and for all generations.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, you know Liberal bail has unleashed crime and chaos on our streets. Violent crime is up 55% since the Liberals took office. Gun crime has soared 130%. Homicides are up 30%. Sexual assaults, 76%. Hate crimes up 258%. And more Canadians have now died of overdoses than the Second World War itself. The Prime Minister promised criminal justice reform, but half a year later, that promise remains broken. Liberals are obstructing our jail not bail bill, keeping in place their soft on crime catch and release laws. In 2022, Constable Greg Prishala was killed by a suspect who had already been denied bail, but was released anyway. His death was preventable. Today, Conservatives are proposing a fast-track solution to pass our jail not bail bill immediately to keep Canadians safe. Will the Liberal government scrap the bail laws or get out of the way so Conservatives can...
The honourable member for Davenport.
Speaker, ole, ole, ole! October is Latin American Heritage Month, and it's so exciting to know that we have a whole month to celebrate the amazing music, literature, food, art, and language of 21 diverse and beautiful Latin American and Hispanic nations represented in Canada. This is one of Canada's fastest growing communities, young, entrepreneurial, and innovative. From medicine to business, from arts to politics, they are leaders shaping our nation's future. But they're also vital bridge builders. This community strengthens our diplomatic and business ties with the Americas, opening doors to new partnerships and opportunities. They help Canada succeed in a region that is increasingly important to our prosperity. Gracias to the leaders of the Latin American and Hispanic Canadian community. You're an inspiration not only within your community, but to all Canadians. So this month, let's celebrate together, and let's recognize that Latin American and Hispanic Canadians aren't just part of our present, they're building our future. Viva los Latinos y los Hispanos en Canadá. Viva!
Viva! Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Let's go.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the body of a woman killed by her partner was found in Saint-Jérôme. She was killed by a man who had previously been arrested 30 times, but set free by liberal laws. And that's not all. A 6-year-old child was found with a crack pipe in their mouth near the Benoît Larbre Center, where the federal government gives a permit for the use of illegal drugs. Will this government recognize that liberal legislation is threatening our children, women, and all citizens? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, all my sympathies for the families, friends, community members in the cases that my colleague has just mentioned. We recognize that we must strengthen legislation regarding bail. There will be comprehensive legislation that will be tabled in the weeks to come.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, crime victims don't want the Prime Minister's sympathy. They want to know why he's broken his promise. They want to know why liberal bail remains in place, allowing for the same repeat offenders to offend again and again. The body of a woman was found in the last few days in Saint-Jérôme, Quebec, killed by her partner, who had been arrested 30 times before but released on liberal.
Oh, come on. Sorry, this is on the
liberal bail. Will the Prime Minister finally scrap liberal bail, or better yet, get out of the way so that we can do the jobs ourselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government is bringing forward comprehensive bail reform. This comprehensive bail reform is based on extensive consultations with the provinces and territories. It's based on extensive discussions with law enforcement. It is based on evidence. It is not based on cut and paste American bail laws. It's a bail law that works. We are tough on crime and firm on the rights of Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
To see the Prime Minister rant and rave and point his finger at police after they have been crying out for this government to scrap liberal bail for years. We have Constable Greg Pershella, who was killed by a man released yet again on bail. We have a woman killed by her husband after he was arrested and released 30 times because of liberal laws. We have 1,600 crimes every single day in this country because of the liberal laws. Will he stop screaming, hollering, and jabbing his finger and scrap liberal bail?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government, which has been in place for 6 months, has undertaken comprehensive consultations with law enforcement, with the provinces, based on evidence, is bringing forward the toughest bail legislation and sentencing legislation that will work, not one imported from the United States.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the government wants any proof that it's been in place for 10 years. The justice minister that prime minister named is the guy who ruined our immigration system, and then he went on to ruin our housing system. And now, 6 months after this prime minister looked Canadians in the eye and promised to scrap Liberal bail, that bail is still in place, and every day, violent repeat offenders are released onto our streets, massacring our people. Will the Prime Minister stop making excuses? They've had 10 years. He's had 6 months. Canadians cannot afford to wait anymore. When will he scrap Liberal bail?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am heartened by the knowledge that the members opposite will be supporting comprehensive bail reform when it is brought forward in a few weeks before this House. Bail reform that works, bail reform that's tough on crime, bail reform that is consistent with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Hear, hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, this government's bail laws violate the charter rights of 1,600 people every single day. Their names are victims. They're the people who get hit over the head with baseball bats, who get robbed, who have their children violated in what should be the safety of their own houses. We have a 3-year-old who was raped by a repeat offender out on Liberal release. We have a constable shot to death by someone out on Liberal release. And now we have a woman murdered by her own partner who was out on Liberal release. How many have to die before he gets rid of Liberal bail?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government is taking measures against crime. We are tightening our borders. We are reinforcing the number of RCMP. We are introducing in the next few weeks the most comprehensive bail reforms and toughening of sentencing laws. Bail reform that will work. Bail reform that will work, not bail reform that is copied from our neighbour to the south.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
They already brought in a bail reform. That is the bail reform that allows the same offenders to be released 150 times a year. His Justice Minister voted to allow repeat offenders, violent sex offenders, to do their sentences in their living room. That is their policy. We have a bill before the House today that we could pass through all stages right now if the Prime Minister didn't care about who got the credit. Will he put aside partisanship and grandstanding and join with us to scrap Liberal bail, save lives for Canadians, or will he just get out of the way?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms won't just get out of the way as the member opposite wishes.
Hear, hear.
What this country needs, what those victims deserve, what all Canadians deserve is bail reform and sentencing laws that work. That is what this government is bringing forward. We invite the members opposite. We share the same objectives. We invite the members opposite to join us in swift passage of the government's bail reform.
Hear, hear. L'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, a week ago, the Minister for Government Transformation announced the end of postal service as we know it. For example, the end of home delivery and the closure of postal offices. So, of course, there's been a general strike from Canada Post because the announcement was literally the end of their work. And the result is that passports are stuck at postal offices, checks aren't being sent out, and some elections might have to be delayed. What did the Prime Minister expect from this? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is the current situation. Canada Post is no longer viable. Every day it loses $10 million. We need reforms. We need to implement the policies detailed in the report, and we need an agreement between the corporation and the unions. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are so disconnected and so irresponsible that they didn't even realize that they were triggering a crisis. For 10 years, the government did nothing to modernize Canada Post. There were no real consultations or public debate about the future of this essential service. Just silence and inaction. But now, 10 years later, it's like the Liberals suddenly woke up and they turned things upside down at Canada Post. They're depriving people of an essential service. How are they going to fix this? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Kaplan carried out a number of consultations with workers, with stakeholders, with Canada Post, with Canadians, with Quebecers. And detailed essential reforms for Canada Post. We need an agreement. We need to bring in appropriate reforms for all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, thousands of postal workers are wondering if their entire profession is about to disappear. They were not consulted. Thousands of women and men are waiting for a check, a passport, or another important document, and they have no idea how they're going to get it. They were not consulted either. Thousands of businesses, especially SMEs, small businesses that are wondering how their products can possibly be distributed now. They were not consulted either. Does the Prime Minister realize what a mess he's created? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada Post provides an essential service to Canadians and Quebecers. But we need a sustainable system. It's not acceptable to see Canada Post losing $10 million day over day, taxpayer money that belongs to Canadians and Quebecers. That's unacceptable. We need a real solution.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Liberal bail laws have unleashed crime and chaos on our streets. Their law, C-75, releases repeat violent offenders at the earliest opportunity on the least restrictive conditions. The Prime Minister promised to repeal these dangerous Liberal bail laws, but 6 months in, it's the same bait and switch and the laws remain in place. And now, more than half of Canadians don't feel safe in their own homes. So the question is simple. Will the Prime Minister scrap Liberal bail or get out of the way so Conservatives can?
Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives shout empty slogans, we've done comprehensive consultations all summer so that we can get it right. The bail legislation that is going to be presented shortly in this House brings bail reform, harsher sentences, addresses victims of intimate partner violence. Mr. Speaker, the legislation that we're bringing forward is a complete, comprehensive package, and I hope the Conservatives will be able to support it.
That's right.
Honourable Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are telling Canadians to be patient, that someday they might act. Tell that to the families of Bailey McCourt and countless others who have lost their loved ones. Under their watch, violent crime is up, extortion is up, homicides are up, sexual assaults are up, and every single day that goes by with these Liberals delaying, 1,600 more violent crimes happen in our streets. That's 1 per minute. Lives are being lost. Families are being destroyed. So the question, again, simple question. Will the Liberals scrap Liberal bail, support the Jail Not Bail Act, or get out of the way so Conservatives can clean up their mess?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, community safety has been our top priority. That's why our first pieces of legislation have all addressed this area. Mr. Speaker, one of the most rising types of crime in our country is cyber attacks against our children. Sextortion is rising in this country more than almost anything else. C2 addresses that issue. It gives tools to the police to be able to catch these predators, these child predators that are walking, roaming free in our country. I hope the Conservatives will support C2.
Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Liberal laws have unleashed crime and chaos on our street, and it's no wonder their Bill C-75 requires courts to release violent repeat offenders at the earliest opportunity on the least restrictive conditions. The results are devastating, and Markham Malone, a criminal out on bail for attempt murder, shot a man in a home invasion. These Liberals promise bail reform, but just another bait and switch. If he's serious, will the Prime Minister scrap Liberal bail or get out of the way and let Conservatives finally do it?
Here, here.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, since taking office on April the 28th, this new government has been working on bail reform, Mr. Speaker. We've been consulting with law enforcement across the country, Mr. Speaker. We've been speaking to mayors, we've been speaking to provincial leaders, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to consult and we will continue to bring forward the most comprehensive bail reform this country has ever seen.
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
It's been a long 6 months since this Prime Minister promised bail reform, and nothing has happened. Instead, these Liberals are obstructing the Conservative Jail Not Bail Act from passing, keeping soft on crime, catch and release laws on the books. Since the Liberals took office, violent crime up 55%, sex assaults up 76%, and gun crime soared a staggering 130%. Enough is enough. When will these Liberals finally protect Canadians, stop Liberal bail, and back the Conservative Jail Not Bail Act?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we will be bringing forward bail reform in very short order, Mr. Speaker. But let me take this opportunity to talk about other legislation that's in the House that the party opposite could pass today. That is Bill C-2, Mr. Speaker, which gives law enforcement additional tools to do their job more effectively, to make sure that guns do not come in through our border, Mr. Speaker. That's the type of commitment that we have on this side of the House, and we invite the party opposite to support us.
Member for Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals unleash crime and chaos on our streets. Under Bill C-75, courts are compelled to release criminals early and under the least restrictive conditions. A woman on house arrest for breaking into a home with a weapon went to our local beach, kidnapped a 5-year-old girl, and was found in a canoe holding the girl under the water. She's been charged with manslaughter. This dangerous person should never have been allowed to walk freely on our street. The Prime Minister promised action, and for 6 months he's failed. When will these Liberals scrap their criminal experiments, or will they let Conservatives fix it for them?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, if we wish to discuss criminal experiments, let's talk about the 10-year tattered legacy of the Harper government, which saw every single one, every single piece of its criminal injustice.
I've already turned up the volume on the speakers here. I have one notch left to go. The Honourable Government House Leader from the top, please.
If you want to talk about criminal experiments, let's talk about the 10-year tattered legacy of the Harper government, which finished every single time at the Supreme Court of Canada having bills struck down. That is not helping victims, Mr. Speaker. This session of Parliament, we are going to see the true agenda of the Conservative Party. They can vote for C-2. They can vote for bail reform. They can vote to restrict intimate partner violence. We will see where the Conservatives stand on criminal justice in this session of Parliament,
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg Saint Charles. Mr. Speaker, it's important to point out that crime has increased by 55% over the last decade while this government was in place. While under the previous 10 years of the Conservative government, it went down by 25%. That's the truth, Mr. Speaker. But now today, with a liberal justice system, is that we see that woman was killed by her former partner who had previously been let out on bail 16 times, even though he never respected the conditions. Why was he able to go see his girlfriend and kill her? How do the Liberals answer that question? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, there have been a number of tragedies in Quebec and elsewhere in the country, and we must absolutely take action. Conservatives for 10 years had a chance, And it always ended up being a total mess. It always ended up being dragged before the Supreme Court of Canada, where the court showed that the Conservatives had violated the Charter. Conservatives had their opportunity. And this session will give them a chance and see if they want action or if they just want to pretend that they have all the answers, when actually they just want to go against the Charter. The honourable member, I would invite my colleague to go see the family of the woman killed in Saint-Jérôme. Does that family think that this Liberal legislation helped? No, they definitely don't. What's the real truth is that Conservatives brought in a system that reduced crime by 25%. We need fair but harsh towards criminals. That's the type of law we need. We need criminals behind bars. The Honourable Government House Leader. Yes, it's very clear, Mr. Speaker, that criminals need to go to prison. And we need a justice system as a way of administering justice that works, that respects rights, that also respects victims and respects our democratic system. Now, this session, the Conservatives will be able to vote in favor of victims' rights and in favor of common sense measures to limit crime. Will they vote in favor of that, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe by Acton. Mr. Speaker, once again, there are new tariffs that are being brought in for our forestry industry. Washington has announced further 10% tariffs on our softwood lumber, which is already facing 35% tariffs. And that's not all. Donald Trump has also announced 25% tariffs on wood products like wardrobes, for example. And during that time, we still aren't seeing the assistance that Ottawa announced at the beginning of August. This Prime Minister said he would save us from Donald Trump. Well, could he start by saving our softwood lumber industry? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, we are aware of the new tariffs that the American administration are bringing in, and we completely disagree with these tariffs, and that is why we are here to help the furnishings industry and the softwood lumber industry. We are ensuring that there is a program to support our small businesses. We have launched this program, and I hope that my colleague will support that. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe by Acton. Mr. Speaker, it's just failure after failure for this Prime Minister as he tries to take on Donald Trump. Now we have these new softwood lumber tariffs. Yesterday we learned that there may be more American milk coming into the country, and this summer, the Prime Minister gave up on the digital services tax that was supposed to be levied on the web giants. These failures are affecting Quebec forests, Quebec dairy farmers, and Quebec culture. Will the Prime Minister finally stand up for the Quebec economy? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, every day our government stands up for the Quebec economy. And in fact, in Saint-Bruno de Montarville, there are dozens of new jobs that are being created. And in fact, tomorrow, there's another piece of good news where Boeing will be able to create new aerospace jobs. Now, that said, on the topic of tariffs, those tariffs are indeed unjustified. We will help industry, and I hope that my colleague and I will be able to work together to help his riding. But beyond that, supply management is not on the table, and Quebec culture will never be on the negotiating table.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Liberal Bail has unleashed crime and chaos in our streets. Their weak law, Bill C-75, requires courts to release repeat violent offenders at the earliest opportunity. Recently, 3 suspects were arrested for a series of home invasions in Vaughan. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, 2 of them are out on bail. This Prime Minister promised Liberals would flip-flop on bail. But 6 months after he came to power, weak Liberal laws are still on the books. So will he do the right thing, scrap Liberal bail, or get out of the way and let us do it?
That's right. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, When the honourable member poses a question about repealing Bill C-75, I would suggest that it's a good idea that he read it in its entirety. He does not seem to understand that the bill actually makes it harder for people who are charged with intimate partner violence to receive bail. Now we are willing to work in good faith with members of any party to strengthen the bail system, have harsher penalties for serious crimes, and most importantly, to keep Canadians safe. The only question I have is whether the Conservatives will support the bill.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
The only thing the Liberals seem to do with any speed around here is manufacture excuses for their inaction. Meanwhile, in the last 8 weeks, York Region has seen 914 assaults, 296 vehicle thefts, and 174 break-and-enters. We know what to do. Mayors, police chiefs, and Canadians all across this country have been calling on this Liberal government to scrap their failed bail laws, C5 and C75. So, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are watching. Will this Prime Minister do the right thing, scrap Liberal bail laws, or get out of the way so Conservatives can do it for them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives stand here and lecture us about criminal justice, but Canadians remember their record time and time again. They imposed unconstitutional mandatory minimums, piled on cruel punishments, and tied the hands of judges, only to have the Supreme Court strike them down, each decision time and time again. And now they claim that we're not acting on bail reform. It's a bit rich. And the truth is, since making our commitment, the Minister has been working with provinces and territories, consulting police chiefs, police associations, and frontline stakeholders to get this right. We want it.
The honourable member for Niagara South.
Mr. Speaker, Daniel Senecal brutally sexually assaulted, choked, and nearly killed a 3-year-old little girl in Niagara. This crime has mobilized my community and galvanized an effort to have the criminal code changed so monsters like this never see the light of day again. The Conservative Jail Not Bail Act will restore safe streets and keep vile perpetrators like Daniel Senecal in jail. The government can act right now by supporting our legislation. Will the Prime Minister scrap Liberal bail or get out of the way and let Conservatives do it?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, it's exactly cases like that, which is the reason why we are taking the action that we are. With C9, we made it. With C9, we made murder-motivated hate crimes a constructive first-degree offence, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the Conservatives for allowing that bill to go to committee. C9 has created more hate-related crime offences in the code, which, with tougher penalties, Mr. Speaker, C2 also brings tough on crime legislation as well. And I'm afraid that the Conservatives think it's too tough and have not been supported.
The honourable member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' bail has unleashed crime and chaos on our streets. One recent example was a home invasion where the perpetrator was out on bail. Their law, C-75, requires courts release violent career criminals at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. This Prime Minister promised the Liberals would flip-flop on bail, but it was a bait-and-switch. With the bail law still in place 6 months after he took power, will this Prime Minister scrap Liberal bail or get out of the way and let Conservatives do it?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we have committed to bringing forward comprehensive bail reform legislation, Mr. Speaker, that we will do over the next several weeks. But I also want to be clear, this issues around bail is not just the responsibility of the federal government, Mr. Speaker. It also involves the provinces. It's up to the provinces to fund their courts adequately. It's up to them to ensure that their justice of the peace as well as the judges are trained, Mr. Speaker. It's also important that they have facilities to hold. So it's a comprehensive approach where the federal government's ready to do its part. We invite the province to do the same.
The honourable member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Mr. Speaker, Liberal bail policies have unleashed crime and chaos on our streets. Swift Radio 12 a.m. in Surrey was struck by gunfire on Monday night. Thankfully, no one was inside at the time, but our communities live in constant fear that next time they won't be so lucky. No one should have to fear for their safety while simply doing their job. But after 10 years of Liberal soft on crime policies, this has become far too common. Enough empty promises. The Liberals have failed to act. Will this Prime Minister get serious on extortion and adopt our Conservative bill, or will he get out of the way and let the Conservatives do it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve to feel safe in their communities. Our government is cracking down on repeat violent offenders with the new legislation that will be forthcoming to strengthen bail, strengthening sentencing and court efficiencies. We are working closely with provinces and territories to reform bail, sentencing and address delays, giving police and prosecutors stronger tools to keep violent offenders off our streets. This is what Canadians want. This is what they elected us to do, and that's exactly what we will do.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, the Canada Dental Care Plan is a great success. This morning, the Minister of Health announced that over 5 million Canadians are now covered under the plan. In my constituency of Terrebonne, people have told me that this program has allowed them to see a dentist for the first time in decades, which means that they don't have to go to the emergency room for dental problems. Can the Minister tell us more about why this program is important to Canadians?
L'Honorable Ministre de la Santé.
The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the member for her question. The Canada Dental Care Plan is one of the most important social programs in the history of our country. And I'd like to remind this House that the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois voted against it. Every day, more and more Canadians have access to dental care, and the average beneficiary of the program is saving about $800 a year. I'd like to thank all dentists, dental hygienists, and specialists who are participating in the program. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Étrements, Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised to reform his terrible criminal justice system, but here we are 6 months later and nothing has been done. He continues to release dangerous repeat offenders. Under the Liberals, over the past 10 years, sexual assault incidents have increased by 76%. The Conservatives are proposing a law we can pass immediately, jail, not bail, to protect Canadians. Will they drop the Liberal bail system? If not, Mr. Speaker, will they get out of the way so that we can get the job done? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice. Well, Mr. Speaker, in Bill C-75, we strengthened Canada's response to domestic violence between intimate partners. We strengthened the definition of intimate partner, and we increased the burden of proof for repeat offenders of intimate partner violence. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserved fact-based debate. If the Conservatives want to repeal a bill that makes it harder for intimate partner violence offenders to get bail, then let them say so to Canadians. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Étrements, Lévis. Well, that's not the truth at all, Mr. Speaker. 14 alleged femicides have already been recorded in Quebec in 2025. Recently, one of the victims was murdered by her partner, who had a long criminal record of domestic violence. He had also violated his bail conditions over 16 times, yet he was at large, Mr. Speaker. Since the Liberals came to power, violent crime has increased by 55%. Homicide has increased about 30%, and sexual assault incidents have increased by 76%. How many women have to be raped and murdered? How many young people have to be abused, Mr. Speaker, before they understand and change the law? Thank you. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member asked her question about C-75, but I suggest strongly that she read C-75 before asking questions about it. Read it thoroughly, because in fact C-75 makes it harder to obtain bail for those who are accused of intimate partner violence. We are ready to work in good faith with members of all parties to strengthen our parole and bail systems. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Échemins, Lévis. Well, I suggest that she read Patrick Lagacé's Chronicle, his column published in this morning's La Presse. He reports on a justice system that protects dangerous repeat offenders with long criminal records who are let loose on our streets. And who's looking out for the victims? No one in this government. They promised to take action to scrap their nonsensical laws, but nothing has happened. Can they do something and pass our law to support victims? And if not, they should get out of the way and let us handle things, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, this summer, we took the time to crisscross the country. We met with Crown attorneys and police bodies to develop a new parole and bail system. We don't want to pass any bill quickly so that it can be taken before the Supreme Court and possibly withdrawn or repealed. We are taking the time to do things right on this side of the House.
In 2017, Gulfam Hussain, a Pakistani national, was convicted of, in the United Kingdom, for, quote, adult sexual activity with a female family member aged 13 to 17, offender over 18, penetration. Said differently, Hussain had incestuous sex with his underage niece, and he was placed on the UK's sex offender registry. Yet in 2023, the Liberals granted Hussain a visa to enter Canada. Can the Liberals explain why they allowed a publicly listed incestuous child sex abuser into Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Canadians' trust in their immigration system is paramount. That's why we're constantly working to improve immigration security screening processes, particularly in responses to new challenges and pressures. We have Border Bill C2, and I invite my colleagues to help us pass that bill that will further strengthen our immigration system.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
It seemed the Liberals couldn't do a simple Google search on an incestuous child sex abuser. Nonetheless, the person who let this person into Canada is now, thanks to the Prime Minister, our Justice Minister. And instead of deporting Hussain, right now the Liberals are letting him gum up Canada's court system. This is truly disgusting, and it's antithetical to what it means to be Canadian. And the person who allowed this incestuous child sex abuser should be fired. So why did the Prime Minister promote the Immigration Minister who allowed an incestuous child sex abuser into Canada to Minister of Justice?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a robust system of determining who's admissible and who's not admissible.
It's robust.
Canada, Mr. Speaker. I would like to just confirm that the Canada Border Service Agency is working to remove the largest number of people in Canadian history, Mr. Speaker. Over 20,000 people targeted to be removed who are inadmissible to Canada, and we're doing it as we speak, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to work with law enforcement. We'll continue to work with CBSA to ensure our borders are safe, and those who are undesirable in Canada will not be permitted to come here.
Honourable Member for Chilliwack.
The Prime Minister promised Canadians he could handle Donald Trump. He promised he would quickly negotiate a win. For Canadian workers, it has been nothing but losses. We have the second highest unemployment rate in the G7. Invista is closing their plant in Maitland and moving to Texas. 100 jobs gone. Cap Paper and Kapuskasing is shutting down. 350 jobs gone. In Oshawa, GM is shifting truck production south. Hundreds of jobs gone already and thousands more at risk. When will this Prime Minister finally keep his promises, stop losing jobs, and start standing up for Canadian workers?
Here, here. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, just a few weeks ago, I stood with the building trades unions and the Prime Minister as we announced the first 5 projects that will be managed by the Major Projects Office Coalition. And Mr. Speaker, this is good news for Canadians because we're laser focused, Mr. Speaker, on creating jobs and supporting the training that Canadians need to seize those opportunities. What they get from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, they get fear-mongering, they get hate, Mr. Speaker. And you know what else they get, Mr. Speaker? They get them voting against their own interests over and over. We on this side will take care of Canadians' interests.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
The Prime Minister promised he would have a deal with Trump by July 21st. Well, it's October, he has no deal, and Canada is bleeding jobs. Imperial Oil is shutting down in Calgary, 900 jobs gone. Thousands of forestry jobs in BC are at risk because he hasn't got a softwood lumber deal done. He promised he would create middle-class jobs, but instead he's lost 86,000 jobs since he became Prime Minister. When will this Prime Minister abandon his job-killing policies here at home and finally keep his promise to get a deal and save Canadian jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Well, one thing we agree with the members of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, is that it is time for all hands on deck, and that's what this Prime Minister has been saying ever since the election and before. This is a time for Canadians to pull together. In fact, the provinces and territories recognize that. They're investing in Canadian workers, they're investing in training, they're investing in major projects. You know who's standing against Canadians, Mr. Speaker? Only one group, and that's the Conservative Party of Canada.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is saying a lot of things, but no action. He promised he would negotiate a win with the U.S. by July 21st. It's now October, and Canada has the second highest unemployment and the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. This week in Oshawa, auto workers were told more jobs are moving to the United States. It's clear the biggest threat to Canadian jobs is the Prime Minister's broken promises and failure to get a deal. Are Canadians losing their jobs because of his failed diplomacy abroad, his job-killing policies at home, or both?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Government never talks down our workers, never talks down our economy, never talks down our industries. And we are there to create jobs while we be protecting a lot of jobs. Of course, I hear everything that is happening in the auto sector. That's why we've been there for Oda, for Honda, for Toyota, for Stellantis, for Ford, and for GM. And we've put a remission system in place to make sure that they would protect jobs. Meanwhile, I must say to my honourable colleague that Canada will be the second best country in the G20 for doing business, according to the Economic Intelligence Unit. And among the G7, Canada is ranked third with respect to ease of starting a business.
The honourable member for Calgary, Signal Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised Canadians that he would negotiate a win with Donald Trump by July 21st. That was months ago, and Canadians are worse off than we were before. The fastest shrinking economy, the second highest unemployment rate in the G7, all the while the Prime Minister jetted around the globe. In Calgary, Imperial Oil is cutting 900 jobs. This is a direct result of 10 years of Liberal anti-energy law and policy. Canadians are losing jobs. Is it because of the Prime Minister's failed jet-set diplomacy or his job-killing?
Yeah, the Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, this government has a true plan to build one Canadian economy. And when it comes to building one economy, we've made sure that we would have important national major projects. And we've announced them in the energy sector, including in LNG. And of course, he should ask the Premier of Alberta what she thinks about that.
Right.
The other thing also I would like to say is that the GDP is actually growing. And look at the last numbers in July. And when you look at also what is happening in the country, wages are increasing. And indeed, when you saw 3.3% of growing wages across the country.
The Honourable Member for Oakville West.
Mr. Speaker, when I talk to my community in Oakville West, I hear a great deal of concern for the world around us. For the last 80 years, the United Nations General Assembly has brought leaders from all backgrounds into one room to bridge political, social, and economic divides. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs was there this past week and reaffirmed Canada's commitment to a more peaceful and prosperous world. Can the Minister share with this House how Canada is confronting the challenges our world is facing?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. Last week at the United Nations, I reiterated Canada's commitment to multilateralism. At a time when countries are retreating towards protectionism, Canada will not retreat. We will continue to be a leader on the world stage. We will strengthen our defence and security. We will strengthen our economic resilience, and we will enhance our commitment to core values. Mr. Speaker, with these three pillars of Canada's foreign policy, we will build Canada strong.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Battleford, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Mr. Speaker, every dollar this Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. Liberal inflationary spending, the carbon tax, fuel standards, and the plastics ban are all hidden taxes driving up the cost of groceries. Moms and dads are struggling to feed their kids, and food banks are seeing record usage. Still, these Liberals voted against our motion to axe all taxes on food. Nutritious food should not be a luxury, Mr. Speaker. When will the Liberals finally stop taxing food?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that member opposite maybe hasn't done her own grocery shopping for a while because there is a GST tax on food. I will say this, Mr. Speaker.
Excuse me.
So pathetic.
Yeah. I mean, I know members want question period to finish as close to 3 o'clock as possible. But if we keep having interruptions, that won't be possible. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families from the top, please.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'll rephrase it in a way that doesn't insult my member in the way that she feels so insulted. But I will say this, people who are grocery shoppers know that there isn't GST on food in this country. And so it's misleading for the member opposite to pose a question like that in a way that could confuse Canadians. What I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that we have cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. I know that this bill is seeking the approval of this House, and I hope they're not going to vote against the support that Canadians need at this time. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, just yesterday, the Liberals voted against our motion to lower hidden food taxes on Canadians. They voted to keep taxing food with their industrial carbon tax on fertilizer and farm equipment and inflation tax from increasing money spending. These Liberal policies mean families are paying more at the grocery store. Pork is up 37.2% just in March alone. When will the Liberal government finally stop their hidden grocery taxes and provide real relief to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Let's just debate on facts. And this is what the House of Commons is about. It is about the fact that, indeed, there is no GST on food at the grocery store. But that being said, we also cut taxes for the middle class on 22 million people across the country. We cut also tax for first-time home buyers across the country. And we cut the carbon tax. So we know that things are sometimes difficult across the country. We will be there for people. That's why we have a strong social safety net. That's why we've done a lot when it comes to dental care, pharmacare, and we'll continue to enhance that social safety net.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Every dollar this Liberal government wastes means higher taxes hidden in Canadian grocery bills, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister hasn't even spared our morning coffee. Since he took office, the price of coffee is up 23%, sugar up 20%. Liberals refuse to scrap the industrial carbon tax, the packaging tax, and the fuel standard tax.
Shame.
The sweet things in life shouldn't come at a bitter price, Mr. Speaker. When will the Liberals finally axe their hidden taxes on food?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
All the experts will tell you that the answer to food insecurity is income security. First and foremost, what does that mean? It means good jobs for Canadians, but it also means a stronger social safety net to help support people in their times of need. Both of them require a strong economy in Canada. That's why our government is focused on making generational investments in housing, defense, and infrastructure so we can build the strongest economy in the G7. That's how we'll ensure families can feed themselves for generations to come.
The Honourable Member for Prescott Russell Cumberland.
Mr. Speaker, small businesses in my riding of Prescott Russell Cumberland are the heart and soul of my community, and they're the key to building the strongest economy in the G7. But with the current trade situation with the United States, small businesses are facing unique challenges. Can the Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Secretary of State for Small Business share what our government is doing to support small businesses?
The Honourable Minister for Small Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable colleague for that question. Our government understands that small businesses are the backbone of their Canadian economy, and that's why we launched the Buy Canadian policy that will strengthen supply chains and create more opportunities for small businesses. We made it easier for them to access BDC loans so they can compete, grow, and reach new markets, and we're stepping up to support small businesses, especially those hit by the U.S. tariffs, through the $5 billion Strategic Response Fund. These measures will protect and strengthen Canadian businesses as we build the strongest economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Tobique-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said Canadians should judge him by grocery prices. Across Canada, rural families are feeling the pain at the checkout, including in New Brunswick, where groceries are up 23%, far outpacing inflation. Yet yesterday, the Liberals voted against our motion to make food more affordable. Instead, they doubled down on their hidden taxes like the industrial carbon tax, their fuel standards, and their packaging tax, policies that hit rural Canadians hard. When will the Liberals finally stop their hidden tax on food and give Canadians a break at the grocery store?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Tobique-Mactaquac is home to McCain Foods, one of the great Canadian food companies. And whether you're from Johnville or Bristol or Heartland or Woodstock, you have a lot of sense and you know this. There is no tax on food at the grocery store. He knows it. They know it. Big common sense in the St. John River Valley, and we'll keep talking to them and doing stuff for them, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The Parliamentary Secretary to Combating Crime posted on X, and I quote, "On behalf of the Government of Canada, I am announcing that on the advice of our officials, we have deemed the group kneecap ineligible to enter our country." Can the Minister advise if the Parliamentary Secretary was authorized to make this announcement? If yes, who authorized it? Was it the Minister, Department officials, or the Prime Minister's office? If no one authorized it, can the Minister advise what follow action will be taken to address this serious misrepresentation of authority? Canadians deserve to know.
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Persons seeking to come to Canada must meet eligibility and admissibility requirements of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. Each case is assessed individually. Entry to Canada may be refused for a number of reasons. An individual whose electronic travel application has been declined can reapply by doing an ETA once they've addressed the reasons that it has been refused. IRCC cannot comment on individual cases. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And following up with the Honourable Minister, this story has made a lot of waves in media. It doesn't seem at all clear that there is evidence that the banned kneecap was deemed ineligible by the department. So since the minister can't discuss any individual case, can she please confirm whether or not any authorized entity within the Canadian government refused entry to the Irish banned kneecap, or whether it was just one rogue MP?
Okay, the Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I said, we assess each case on a case-by-case basis. Anyone who wishes to enter Canada must meet the conditions of the Immigration Act. There's also an electronic travel authorization request. It was refused, and another request may be presented after explaining the reasons. We cannot comment on individual cases. Thank you. That concludes.
This brings question period to an end. It was a bit noisy today.
I guess it was a bit noisy. Imagine all of these foolish things happening at once, and we're supposed to think it's a big coincidence. What in the world? In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
1,600. 1,600, Mr. Speaker. That is the number of crimes that happen in this country every single day. That's almost one crime per minute. And these aren't statistics. These are innocent people hit over the head with baseball bats. Their jewelry store smashed in by an incoming automobile that then is used to open up and steal the proceeds that families have spent their entire lives earning. It's the people who wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of stomping feet in their living room floor as home invaders break in to steal, rob, pillage, and much worse. It's the Faruqi family, whose courageous father came running out to protect his defenseless children against home invaders and was shot in the throat. It is a 3-year-old girl, mercilessly raped by a chronic repeat offender, a scumbag who had already been convicted of raping a 12-year-old boy, but yet, under Liberal laws, was out on the street. C'est le cas qu'on entend à Saint.
Or in Saint Jérôme, a woman was killed by her former partner, a partner who had already been arrested 30 times and who had gotten bail 16 times before killing his partner.
Beautiful young mother, Bailey McCourt, murdered by her ex, who was out on bail, and he had only been released 3 hours earlier. He was only 4 kilometers away from the courthouse that granted him that Liberal bail. Now, these are not just sensationalist stories, as Liberals like to dismiss them. These are facts. While the Justice Minister condescendingly dismissed these crimes as we are not the Wild West, well, the facts would beg to differ, Mr. Speaker. Under this Liberal government, since they have taken office, violent crime is up 55%. Extortions up 330%. Homicides up 29%. Sexual assaults up 76%. There is a cause and there is effect. We know the source of this crime. It is Liberal bail. Liberal bail as passed into law by Liberal Law C-75. It requires judges to release the accused at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous restrictions. Those are the words embedded in the law. And as a result, the same offenders can commit literally hundreds of offenses and be released often within hours of their latest arrest. Police say that often they're not even finished the paperwork on the arrest and the offender is back out on the street. I've had police officers tell me they've arrested the same offender 3 times in the same day. One police officer in the Toronto area told me that most of the arrests this time, the criminals happily confessed to the crime in the back seat of the car because they actually don't care about getting convicted anymore. They know that Liberal laws will turn them loose regardless of the outcome of the trial. Now, Liberals pulled a bait and switch in order to get elected. In the last election, they knew that Canadians were fed up with Liberal bail. So they said, give us a 4th chance and we'll reverse course. What happened? Well, it's now been 6 months since the Prime Minister was elected on the promise that he would reverse Liberal bail. And where are we? There's not been a single Liberal bill to reverse the bail system that they set up. Not one. We're 6 months in, Mr. Speaker. We all know what needs to happen. The police have basically written the legislative repeal that is necessary for us to fix the Liberal mess. And yet, no bill, nothing, zero, zip, zilch. Maybe it's because the Prime Minister took the unprecedentedly reckless act of appointing Justin Trudeau's most incompetent minister to the job. The now Justice Minister was the immigration minister who literally destroyed the best system in the world, increasing the numbers by 300% over the previous norm, allowing criminals to come into our country unvetted, swamping our housing, job and health care with too many people too fast. And then he went on to the housing portfolio, where he created the worst housing crisis in the OECD, and now he's in charge of the criminal code. Not compound that problem with the Minister of Public Safety, someone who should resign for having gone ahead with a bill with a plan to confiscate property from law-abiding firearms owners that he was caught on tape saying would not work. This is who we have as the Keystone Cops in charge of reversing the Liberal crime wave of the last decade. Now, some people say we need bail reform. We have bail reform. It's called C-75. What we need is to undo the Liberal bail reform. Hence, today, we are calling for the government to scrap Liberal bail and replace it with jail, not bail. And so today we put forward a motion that would allow Parliament to adopt Bill C-242, the Jail Not Bail Act, put forward by the brilliant Member of Parliament for Oxford, Ontario. This proposal is backed by police, by crime victims, and by everybody who wants to stop crime. And you will hear more from the member for Niagara South, with whom I'm split.
I think it is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Kyle Duggan from the Canadian Press. There is an ostrich farm out in BC that's facing a potential cull of its ostriches. Its supporters are looking to see if you support or oppose this. Have you taken any kind of position on this, or are you willing to speak to this matter in the House, as some of your MPs have?
All right, gang, gonna take a peek at Pierre Poilievre. He's got ARPAN Canada taking a seizure behind him. Pay attention to that. I always enjoy the pressers that follow the big speech more than the speech itself. We get more information there. Let's take a peek. ARPAN Canada, pay attention to him. I think he might have gotten into Jolie's stash. I don't know who's crossing the floor there. Let's take a peek.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Parks and outside, where women no longer have to fear violent ex-husbands and other abusers, where all Canadians feel safe in this wonderful country under our proud flag. Thank you very much.
We will now open the floor to questions. Please identify yourself and your outlet.
Ryan Johnson, Toronto Star. Mr. Poilievre, would you support the Liberals' decision to end door-to-door delivery, bring in community mailboxes, and would you support back-to-work legislation?
What a mess. Unbelievable. 10 years later, after Conservatives had made Canada Post viable, 10 years later, Liberals have lost 5 billion Canadian tax dollars mismanaging Canada Post. Now the workers at Canada Post are suffering. Small businesses face interruptions to their delivery. Rural communities are being deprived of their essential services. Everyone is losing because of Liberal incompetence. And you know, it's just a reminder, when Liberals say there's no cost to their deficits, we now see that there are very real costs. People are paying the price because the longer you pile up Liberal debt, the bigger the price will be in service cuts and higher taxes later on. And that's why what we need is a Conservative government that will responsibly manage our tax dollars, bring down these inflationary deficits, get more value for the money we spend, and make this a country where people get good service at a good price. Thank you.
Next question. Raheem Mohammed, National Post.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with your Premier that a new West Coast pipeline is a litmus test for whether Canada still works and whether we can still build things in this country?
Almost. I think it's a litmus test for Mark Carney. There was a lot of grandiose promises by Mr. Carney during the election that he would build, baby, build faster than you'd ever imagined we could build. So when is this building going to happen? Here we are, 6 months after he took office, and the new Liberal government looks an awful lot like the old Liberal government. The last 6 months looks an awful lot like the last 10 years, where they block, baby, block. So there's only one person who will decide if this pipeline gets built, and it's Mark Carney. So I would encourage you all to ignore provincial politicians who have no authority in this matter. Like, the reality is the federal government has the full authority over interprovincial pipelines. So there's one man who stands in the way of this pipeline getting built. It's Mark Carney. If the Liberals want it built, they will immediately repeal the tanker ban so the pipe can fill a ship that goes abroad, the production cap so that our producers can make enough oil to go in the pipe, and C-69 so that the pipe can get rapidly approved. Mark Carney really only has to do one thing. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. I will note there is some good news, followed by bad news. Canadian pipeline companies are building pipelines. That's the good news. Terrible news. They're building them in the United States of America without taxpayer support. Enbridge is building 2 pipelines right now in the U.S. without taxpayer money. TransCanada Pipelines is building $8.5 billion of brand new projects in the United States without taxpayer money. But here in Canada, Mark Carney is in the way. So my message to Mark Carney, get out of the way so that Canadians can get building a pipeline. That's the way we send our resources to 2.5 billion Asian customers, so we're no longer reliant on the Americans for all of our exports.
Jillian Piper with Global News. Mr. Poilievre, do you think Canada should match the new U.S. retaliatory tariffs that came into place yesterday on pharmaceuticals, heavy trucks, and some furniture?
Well, I think Mr. Carney should keep his promise. He promised that he would negotiate a win with the United States by July 21st. Where's the win? Since Mr. Carney took office promising to be a brilliant negotiator, American tariffs on Canada have more than doubled, and they have much broadened. China, smelling weakness, has hit our farmers and fish harvesters with increased tariffs as well.
6 nations. It's always an honor to rise in the chamber to fight for law-abiding Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal bail reform experiment, the results are in. And they failed. They failed our victims. Their policies have failed survivors, their families. They failed Canadians. And if you look at the news headlines that Canadians are waking up every single day, they're tragic. They're heartbreaking. Extortions are running wild in our community. In BC, in Surrey, in Peel, in Calgary, businesses are scared. They're not even picking up phone calls coming from unknown phone numbers. We hear stories about broad daylight shootings, of murders, of a grandmother who went out to buy groceries, randomly stabbed and killed on the streets. A grandmother, 70-year-old, out to buy groceries, killed. We have violent carjackings, home invasions. The place you're supposed to be the most, your own home, Mr. Speaker. That is supposed to be your castle. That is supposed to be where you can stay in peace, raise your family, live life. And now those areas are being targeted by repeat violent offenders. Crime is up thanks to their failed Liberal policies. Thanks to bills like C-75 and C-5, they've allowed repeat violent offenders to terrorize our communities over and over and over again. It's their decisions. It's their policies. I know they love to deny and deflect and distract Canadians from their failed record. But they're responsible. In 2019, when they brought in C-75, they codified the principle of restraint. The principle of restraint clearly says that judges, justice of peace, peace officers will release on the least restrictive conditions at the earliest opportunity. That is a decision they made. They took that action. They presented that to Parliament. And Conservatives voted against that then, and we're against that principle today. Every single day that goes by, 1,600 violent crimes happen in our country. Just in one day. Wow. 1,600. And if you do the math, that's almost 1 per minute. 1 Canadian per minute falls victim to violent crime in Canada because of their failure to act. And Canadians are scared. They're terrified. They're afraid to go on that evening walk in their neighborhood. I have seniors in Oxford County who can't even go to the bank without seeing security, without being nervous. That is not the Canada that my parents came to. That is not the Canadian dream that newcomers or folks that have been living here for generations love. Mr. Speaker, it is their policies that have let Canadians down. And the ironic part is this, that they said, and the Prime Minister said in the campaign, I'm going to take decisive action. I'm going to be making changes to the criminal code right away. It's been 6 months, and we haven't seen any legislation come forward. They keep talking about some magical bill on bail reform. It's coming. Well, they did bail reform, and they failed. So we don't need no more Liberal bail policies. We need to scrap Liberal bail. We need to invest in making sure that our frontline officers have the tools they need. We need to make sure that the criminal code is reflective of today's realities. And that is why last week I tabled the Jail Not Bail Act. The Jail Not Bail. This legislation, which I did the homework for them. I know they're struggling to put something together. This bill came together from consultation and support from right across our country, from Yukon Whitehorse all the way to the East Coast. I've met with law enforcement, dozens of police unions, along with my colleague from Brantford Brant, South Six Nations, and others in my Conservative team. We've met with victim advocacy groups. I've met with the families of victims. I've sat at their tables and had conversations. And they've cried because this stuff is preventable. We didn't have to be here today. Our bill has feedback from Crown prosecutors, from defense lawyers, from the legal community. And more importantly, we have tens of thousands of Canadians who are signing up our petition demanding this government finally wake up, end the madness, and restore safe streets in our country again. And our Opposition Day motion is important so we could pass Bill 242, the Jail Not Bail Act, as soon as possible. We want them to get out of the way. Stop blocking safe communities. Stop delaying, stop denying. Stop chasing photo ops and media headlines. Instead, focus on fighting crime for our Canadians. And we've seen this not just in the big cities. Crime is now coming to rural Canada. Businesses are being affected. There's an economic cost. There's a emotional, social, security cost that's being added on. And no one's seen this level of crime before. And that is why my Jail Not Bail Act will repeal the principle of restraint that the Liberals brought in. We will introduce a principle of public safety as the primary consideration for bail decisions. Let's put the rights of law-abiding Canadians first, not the criminals like they've been doing for the last number of years. My bill will introduce...
All right, gang, we're wrapping up right there. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, like, share, subscribe, get notified. We cover all the question periods. We do a pretty fun, inclusive live show, like pre-show before the question period. I think that's something that people will catch on to and enjoy it. Like, I spend a lot of time watching, so might as well share what I'm seeing, right? That's it. Thank you all for watching. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, we're out for this one. We'll catch you in the next video, gang. Thank you all for watching. We're out.